Quinn, right?
Malcolm and Quinn,
Yeah.
with this, because he had this broken kind of spear.
Yeah.
And then he sees Andrea, and
She kind of steps in front of him and kind of tells him to stop, right?
yeah, and so he gives her the weapon and takes off
Into the woods.
because the Quinn kind of pulls out his knife like we're gonna fight or whatever.
Yeah.
And so he takes off, and then
Frank is on his tail, running through the forest, and he, what does he do? Oh, he gets to the cabin. There's this cabin. We kind of skipped over this part. There's this cabin in the middle of the woods.
well, he's on Frank's tail actually because it's Frank first running, right?
No, remember, Frank's chasing him, and then he hides underneath a little hole that's underneath the cabin, and then Frank runs into the, he runs to the cabin, and he's the one who opens the door, and then gets the shotgun to the chest.
Because they think it's him?
Yeah.
Oh.
The grinder or whatever his name is. This weird ass dude. So there's a part in the movie where Malcolm is in this cabin or farm. I mean, a farm. What is it called? Like a barn, basically. And it's all covered in vines. And there's this lady, the lady who
we see
Thomas has been
times.
seeing, yes, and Malcolm sees all the time. And this is the lady that he claims talks to him, and he's the only one who can see her, I think. And she's basically a part of the island. She's like we said earlier, like a deity, kind of
like a living god.
Yeah. And she feeds off of blood, right?
Mm-hmm. That's why they've been sacrificing all these things.
Yeah. And so that's a really creepy thing that we kind of glossed over, didn't talk about really. That happened, that's when shit started to get crazy. But yeah, so Thomas hides. He gets Frank to go around the barn, and he opens the door, gets a shotgun to the chest, and then that's when Thomas comes out of the hole and is kind of like, like he sees, I forget what Frank says, because he says like something to Thomas before he gets shot in the back.
Oh, he says burn it all down.
Yeah, that's what he says.
Yeah, burn it all down.
And then he gets shot in the back, and then that's when the grinder kind of
peeks his head out.
Yeah.
But because he has these fucked up like it looks like shitty barbed wire or something.
Yeah.
Some kind of mask thing on, where it fucks up his vision.
So he can only basically like a racehorse.
Yeah.
He only sees in front of him. He has no peripheral vision.
Mm-hmm. And so Thomas sees that Frank is now dead, and he hears Quinn and Malcolm in the back coming on strong, so he hides underneath in the hole, and then they come and find the body of Frank, and
that's when Thomas starts to he gets further underneath the barn and kind of pushes up the floorboards, and he climbs inside, and I think Quinn takes a shot at the grinder, right?
Does he?
Quinn shoots at him, and he hits the part of the barn, and that's when what's his name, Mason, tells him, leave him alone, don't do that. And then
you mean Malcolm?
Malcolm, yeah, say Mason. Malcolm tells him like, no, don't do that, leave him alone, and they basically just take off. And then
you see Thomas. He finds his sister, who's strung up in the barn in a potato sack kind of thing, hanging on a hook. He gets her down, and he says, I'm going to get you out of here no matter what. And then
that's when
he looks up, and the grinders realize what's going on and smacks him in the head
with like a hammer or some weapon. But,
and he falls over, and then we see Malcolm and Quinn
dragging her away.
Yeah. They've come back and they drag her away, and then it cuts to black, and then when we come back we see
Thomas kind of tied up.
Yeah,
he has hooks going through his hands, right?
He's on this fucked up torture device thing, where they're basically, it's like your body is being pushed towards this grinder,
which that's probably how he got his name. But it's basically like a meat grinder, like an old-fashioned one. And the grinder, who is using a grinder, he is he's pulling him closer and closer, and Thomas is trying to get out.
You're wondering what is
like
gonna
what the
happen?
fuck's gonna happen? Like, this is this how it ends? He's just, it's one of those shitty movies. And you see his hands start to go in the grind in this grinder, and he starts screaming. You see blood gushing everywhere, and then he rips his hand out, and you see that he's lost
2 fingers,
3 of his fingers, because all he has is his index finger and his thumb left.
From one hand.
Yeah, from one hand. The other one didn't go in yet. And that's when he gets one hand free, and he kind of pulls a hook out of his leg, I think.
And then the fucking guy, the grinder, figures out that he's gotten free, and then he tries to attack him, and then they face off.
Yeah, and they're kind of tussling around on the table.
Mm-hmm.
And he gets a hook into the grinder's mask, and then Thomas starts putting him through the grinder, trying to, and he gets free, kinda, the grinder guy, and they're wrestling around again, and then Thomas hits this lever that kind of is, I think it's a counterweight or something for the hooks, and it yanks his head, and I think it snaps his neck, right? And so he's killed that guy, and then he gets himself unhooked, and then he starts walking to this god, this lady who's who's kind of like infused with vines in the back of the barn, and she starts speaking this language or whatever, like some ancient language or whatever.
Basically, like asking him to release her.
She even says like, "Oh, my son, I've been waiting for you." And then, that was kind of weird to me, because I was like, oh, like, maybe she knew he was coming the whole time.
The way that I saw it is maybe that's why it's called the Apostle, that he was supposed to go there. Not even necessarily for her, but he was supposed to. Yeah,
make his way there somehow.
And I'll talk about my theory once we get to the end.
Yeah, and so he
burns it all down.
Before that, she kind of... she has these little thorns that come out of the tips of her fingers, remember? And then she's like, "Let me show you," or she says something,
and shows him a flashback.
Yeah,
of basically how this whole cult is formed. Yeah, and it's Quinn and Malcolm. They stumble upon
Frank, right?
Yeah,
the 3 of them. They were prisoners, and they
convicts.
Convicts, and they got off the boat and they came ashore to this island, and then that's when they came across this goddess or whatever, and they figured that
they basically they imprison her into this barn, and they
by feeding her animal blood, because animal blood weakens her, I guess, and it trapped her inside the barn, and I think that's when she releases Thomas from the vision, and she says, release me. So he grabs the lantern and throws it on her, and basically burns the whole barn down. And then I think that starts a chain reaction across the whole island, or at least the town.
They wanted basically like to use her powers for the land, right? Or manipulate her powers,
so they could thrive. But so everything, Thomas makes his way back to the. We skipped a part. Quinn shoots Malcolm. Remember, he turns on him and he shoots Malcolm, and he falls down the door that was at the end of the tunnel. Yeah. And he thinks he's dead, and he takes off. And then we cut back to Thomas making his way back to the town. And everything's on fire. Everyone's grabbing all their stuff, heading to the beach or to the docks to get on the boat to leave.
And Quinn has captured Andrea
and his sister. I don't remember his sister's name, but so he makes his way to Jennifer. Right. He makes his way to them, and Quinn basically tells them that he's going to be using them to feed her, to feed the goddess, and what was he saying?
The babies.
Yeah, he was gonna get them pregnant and then feed them babies
over and over and over again.
Basically, just using them, and that's when Quinn walks out of the jail or the prison that he has them in, and Thomas is right there, and he stabs him in the chest, and that's when they kind of fall down.
He's still alive.
Yeah, he's still alive. They're wrestling still, and
Jennifer uses her legs to grab the shotgun.
Yeah, and they shoot the chain to break themselves free, and Quinn takes his knife out and stabs Thomas a couple times in the side.
Shanks him.
Yeah, like prison style. It was pretty bad. And they actually, Andrea and Jennifer, get the chain around his neck, around Quinn's neck, and they start choking him, and they begin to pull. So he's getting dragged towards them, and then Thomas kind of regains his strength and grabs onto the knife that he has in Quinn's chest already.
Fucking green rooms and
yeah, it just splits him basically down the middle, which was insane. And I was like, wow, they're showing this. This is cool.
Well, that guy fucking deserved it.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm not saying he didn't, but I was like, I was just surprised on how they were, they were showing it. They showed the entire cut, all the way down to his belly button, basically. And so he's dead, and they take off, and they're running. Thomas had told one of the older ladies that was running away. He said, don't leave, wait for us, save a boat for us. So they're running back, and the docks are pretty far away, and Thomas is bleeding out. He falls down, and he's like, just go on without me, everything will be okay, I did this for you. And he's like, he tells his sister, be my shining light to eternity, basically, guide him to heaven, and he'll be, he's basically telling her to just leave him. He'll be okay. He did all this for her, and as long as she gets home, he'll be okay. And so she leaves, and that's when you see Malcolm kind of hobbling along, and they're watching the boat go away, and Thomas, he starts to bleed, right? He's bleeding from his hand.
Oh, everywhere.
Yeah, but there's some blood is dripping off of his hand, and it falls into the grass, and then you see the grass kind of grow around where the blood dropped, and he ends up kind of just collapsing on the ground, and then you see vines or grass go around him, and then vines grow into his face, just like the god lady, how she had vines growing in her face. And his eyes kind of gloss over like hers were, and there was a cut on his neck that actually healed. I don't know if you saw it, but I guess he kind of heals himself, and
he kind of takes her place.
Yeah,
or that's why
he kind of replaces her as the new god of this island, and that's it, right?
Pretty much. Well. And his faith is restored. Yeah. Because he had lost his faith. And it's kind of... So it all starts over again.
Yeah.
Kind of.
And I think, yeah. So, yeah, I that's what I think happened. I mean, it's kind of obvious that he's taken her place. By killing her, he's taken on the responsibilities or the powers of controlling this island. And it's, the surrounding environment. And so what do you think? What do you think happened then?
I think that it's it just all starts off from square one.
Yeah.
Type of thing, like everything just restart. Maybe, I don't know. That's the thing, is that it's open to interpretation whether Malcolm's gonna try to restart his whole
island.
Yeah, again.
Cult.
Or I don't know if it's gonna be done right, or I don't. You don't know.
Yeah.
But it's a good movie, though.
Yeah, it's really about halfway through it starts to get crazy.
Yeah, because this is
2 hours and 9 minutes or something.
And the first half is pretty much all set up.
Yeah.
and then once you get into the thick of things, stuff starts to pick up, and you see why this is why this is a movie.
Yeah.